Well, never mind all that stuff, because COVID also taught Sunny Hostin how to get her groceries delivered. Yeah, I know, amazing. But that means it's time for...
Living your life and you're feeling low. You don't know what is true. You don't know what's true. So you quick flip through the channels to watch Sunny on The View. Oh my God, the stuff she says is dumb. Where the hell they get this woman from? She's a host who's always crass and lame, with lots of nonsense to proclaim.
They didn't just clown her, they demolished her. When South Park set its brutal sights on Rachel Zegler and Disney's already crumbling Snow White disaster, the internet didn't just react, it straight up exploded. What started as some side-eye over her casting turned into an all-out internet inferno the second that animated powerhouse threw their punches. And trust, they didn't hold back. The episode dragged her, exaggerated her, and threw gasoline on every single complaint fans have been shouting online for months. It was savage. Rachel's name rocketed to the top of trending charts in no time.
Make fun of The View a lot, but that's only because they keep talking. Those hens are always clucking. They get to say stupid stuff for an hour every day, and then I get to say stupid stuff for an hour every day, except on purpose. But every now and then, one of those dingbats inadvertently says something that reveals modern liberal thought so perfectly, it deserves further study. You know, like a weird serpent that washed up on the beach and you want to poke it with a stick.
Memes blitzed across every feed you can think of. Clips got ripped, chopped up, remixed. You couldn't scroll for 5 seconds without catching a jab at her. Some people were dying laughing. Some were secondhand cringing so bad they had to close the app. But everybody had something to say, no matter which side they were on. The wildest part? South Park didn't just roast Rachel. They turned her own interviews into ticking time bombs. Every little soundbite she ever dropped got twisted into comedy gold, blowing up in ways nobody saw coming. It was brutal, and nobody walked away without an opinion. And just like that, Disney's next fairy tale masterpiece turned into a full-blown pop culture train wreck. The second South Park dropped their savage takedown, the whole situation spiraled way out of Disney's hands. What followed wasn't just a PR mess. It was a PR nightmare wrapped up in ruthless satire.
So, Sonny, I bet you haven't been in a supermarket since COVID for about 3 years.
I haven't been in a supermarket since COVID. For about 3 years. That's when I discovered Instacart. And I give them a big tip because they don't always pay their people well. And it's so that's been an issue, I think, for the company. But, man, you can get toiletries. You can get fire logs. You know those big bounty towels you don't want to carry?
Those from Costco.
Somebody else goes.
Fire logs? She had to tell the audience that she tips big because even she knows she sounds insufferable. Hey, I'm an but at least I tip.
See, Rachel Zegler didn't just get portrayed as some confused Hollywood newbie in South Park's upcoming DI special, the sequel to their Wild Pandaverse episode. She got blown up into a full-blown cartoon monster, straight out of the angriest corners of the internet. And no, it didn't play it safe. They went full spectacle. The animated Rachel stormed into scenes, hijacking every second of screen time like a wrecking ball. She was ranting at the top of her lungs about how the OG Snow White was a toxic relic of a broken past. No chill at all. She wasn't just throwing shade. She was on a whole warpath, screaming at her castmates, rolling her eyes at scripts, shutting down every suggestion with angry monologues about equity, and saving the fairy tale with real progress. Anytime someone barely tried to get a word in, she was right there cutting them off, bragging about being the only one brave enough to destroy so-called toxic nostalgia. She straight up trashed the original Snow White, laughing off anything about romance, dreams, or tradition. And the craziest part, the parody hit hard because it wasn't just absurd. It was a mirror, a loud, messy, hilarious mirror that felt way too real for comfort.
Hostin's obsession with race gets thrown back in her face. Today's video comes to us from sunny Hostin. Sounds like a town. We're in sunny Hostin. She was on PBS's Finding Your Roots, a show dedicated to researching celebrity ancestry. For context, Sunny is a staunch supporter of reparations and has made a fortune spewing nonsense about white privilege and racial justice. Well, turns out She's not as oppressed as she claims she is. She's actually the descendant of slave owners from Europe. Here's how she took the news.
The wildest thing? A lot of what the cartoon Rachel said, she had actually said in real interviews. Yeah, the animated version was exaggerated and over the top, but it didn't feel like pure fiction, and it felt way too familiar. She bulldozed through the parody, acting like she was society's one and only savior. The rest of the room, from fake Disney execs to her animated co-stars, just sat there cringing, frozen, not sure whether to speak up or get flattened next. And here's where it gets even crazier. It wasn't just jokes, it mirrored real-life interviews almost word for word. But that was only the warm-up, because what went down behind the scenes after that parody aired? That's the part that'll leave your jaw on the floor. Tea first. Rachel's career was looking like a fairy tale itself. Fresh off her critically hyped breakout in West Side Story, Hollywood was throwing flowers at her feet. She was getting praise for her voice, her charisma, her screen presence, everything. People said she had the kind of spark you couldn't fake. Disney jumped at the chance, proudly announcing her as the new face of Snow White in their ambitious live-action reboot. They hyped her up like she was the future, the perfect blend of classic princess magic and modern woke storytelling. Press releases were dripping with praise, calling the move bold and visionary. Rachel was glowing too, calling it a huge honor and saying she wanted to inspire little girls everywhere with a fresh, powerful twist on the classic story.
Wow. I'm a little bit in shock. I just always thought of myself as Puerto Rican, half Puerto Rican. I didn't think I was, my family was originally from Spain and slaveholders.
Yeah. So how are you feeling, my friend?
I think it's actually pretty interesting that my husband and I have shared roots.
Yeah.
So I do appreciate that. And I think it's great for our children to know this information. I guess it's a fact of life that this is how some people made their living, on the backs of others.
Fact of life. Interesting change of tune. For more, we go to our chief Sunny Hostin correspondent for a reaction.
Disney's marketing machine was fired up and ready to steamroll. But that bright, shiny dream? It unraveled fast. Like blinking, you miss it fast. Within days, the backlash was already in full swing, slamming the brakes on the fairy tale they were trying to sell. Fans of the 1937 original weren't feeling it all. The casting of a Latina actress for a character literally named Snow White set the internet on fire with debates hotter than July asphalt. Critics, YouTubers, and angry commenters everywhere started asking the same brutal question. Why cast somebody who clearly doesn't even like the original story? And it wasn't just about looks. It was about what Rachel was saying. Interview after interview, Rachel dragged the old Snow White through the mud. She called the classic weird and outdated. She said the prince was basically a stalker. She even said Snow White wouldn't be dreaming about love anymore. She'd be dreaming about power. For a whole lot of people, this didn't feel like progress. It felt like straight-up erasure. And then, boom, here came South Park, Trey Parker and Matt Stone, the kings of controversy, the dudes who built an empire out of crossing every line you could think of, stepped right into the middle of it. Religion, politics, Hollywood scandals, you name it, they've roasted it. And now they had Disney and Rachel lined up right in their crosshairs. They weren't about to miss. These guys have roasted presidents, clowned A-list celebs, dragged billion-dollar brands, and even flipped entire belief systems on their heads, all with surgical savagery.
I'm going to milk this till the end of time. You're right. Anytime she says something stupid, I'm going to go, slave owner! Kat, I just watched that. That's the second time I've watched that. She was tipped off beforehand, right? Because they had to tell her before, so she had time to regroup. They wouldn't just surprise. Really? Do you think? No?
I don't know. I feel like she could have maybe done better. Okay, here's
When South Park comes for you, it ain't light work. It's viral chaos every single time. And this time, they were locked, loaded, and coming for blood. Their target, a project already choking on controversy, Disney's live-action Snow White. After months of internet meltdowns, media debates, and one lead actress who couldn't stop lighting matches in interviews, Trey Parker and Matt Stone knew they had all the ingredients for a cultural massacre. They cooked up something vicious. Their DI special, basically the wild sequel to Panderverse, didn't just throw jabs. It shredded point one scene hit so hard, Viewers literally had to rewind just to double. Check they weren't tripping that IT wasn't just a roast of Snow White, that IT was a full-on autopsy of the entire controversy. They tore into Disney's new direction, roasted the fan backlash, and surgically disassembled the media chaos swirling around Rachel Zegler. That animated version of Rachel, she wasn't just a caricature. She was a mirror with a megaphone, echoing some of her most controversial interviews almost word for word. Every single line was dripping with double meaning, clowning the script. Rewrites, the casting calls, the corporate statements, and Hollywood's nonstop obsession with looking good, overdoing good. IT was bold, brutal, and had fans all over saying the same thing. They really went there. The resemblance wasn't accidental. It was surgical, and that's exactly what made the whole thing sting even more. For people already fed up with Disney's new direction, South Park's version felt like sweet revenge. But for fans of the film, it hit like a cold slap no matter which side you were on. The parody didn't just poke fun. It cracked open the whole situation and sent shockwaves through the internet.
I think that women, white women in particular, want to protect the patriarchy here because it's to their benefit. Yeah. They want to make sure that their husbands do well. They want to make sure that their sons do well. They want to make sure that their children do well. And they want to make sure that they do well. Most of the women in some of these studies are married white women, and they do fall in line with what their husbands are doing.
People have to wonder, where does Sunny Hostin get her opinions? Yeah. Like you said, and it's obviously from her husband. She has to tell her what to say on The View, because without it, she's got nothing.
Their animated Rachel. She was loud, smug, and overflowing with that I know better than you energy. She wasn't interested in plot. She was too busy saving the world, barking orders, and dragging the evil queen for daring to steal an ounce of attention. That IT was ruthless. And it didn't take long for chaos to erupt. Within hours, clips from the special were everywhere. Fans started sharing side-by-side edits, showing scenes from South Park next to Rachel's real interviews. And the similarities were spooky. This wasn't just satire. This was straight-up commentary. That's when things started to really fall apart. Insiders say Rachel was furious. She wasn't just embarrassed. She felt completely blindsided. Her, this wasn't just a cartoon giggling at some interviews. It felt like a direct, personal attack. According to sources close to her, she saw the parody as way more than a career hit. She saw it as a blow to her values as a woman of color, trying to shake up outdated roles and fight for better representation in a broken industry. The whole thing felt like a public smackdown on her entire mission to push for inclusivity, diversity, and progress in Hollywood.
Joy Behar gets racism. After all, she's been black on Halloween. Yeah. But Joy wasn't there on the show. Apparently Mondays are her days off when she feeds in the pasture. But that is convenient, right? It's like one of my aunts dies every time Bran Kilmeade wants to hang out. Maybe Joy needs a full day to read her hate mail, and that's just from the rest of the cast. So Scott had to deal with Sunny Hostin and her typical self-righteous.
From Rachel's point of view, the South Park episode didn't just mock her. It tore down everything she stood for. That parody stripped away her message, turned her passion into a punchline, and made her whole fight for representation look like one big joke. Sources say she wanted to speak up, clear the air, and defend what she truly meant. But Disney? They had other plans. The second the episode went viral, Disney's top brass hit panic mode. Meetings popped off immediately. Behind-the-scenes executives knew this wasn't just a bad look, it was a potential PR meltdown in real time. The parody had detonated, and now they had to stop the fallout from turning into a full-on corporate disaster. Their solution? Total silence. Yep, Disney allegedly told Rachel to go ghost that NO tweets, NO IG stories, that NO casual mentions during interviews.
But unlike this chick, we didn't think it was the best thing that could have happened to us. Although it did get Joy Behar to wear a mask. You make me sick. It's funny, her being named Joy is like me being named ugly.
Not a single word. She was ordered to disappear from the spotlight, like nothing had happened. Why? Because they were terrified, not just of the parody itself, but of what she might say next. Even if she came out with a carefully written, heartfelt message, the fear was that it could blow up again, reigniting the backlash and dragging the whole company deeper into the firestorm. They pulled the plug on everything. NO press, NO appearances, NO updates. Nothing. Every promo gig, every panel, every spotlight moment. Yanked off the calendar, they weren't taking any chances. One wrong sentence, and it would have been gasoline on a raging fire. And Disney was desperate to smother the flames before they got torched. Even worse, talk shows canceled. Red carpets ghosted. Even a rumored SNL appearance scrapped. The official excuse? Scheduling conflicts. But nobody was buying that. Behind the scenes, the truth was loud and clear. Rachel Zegler had gone radioactive at Disney HQ, and the timing couldn't have been worse. The studio was already in crisis mode. Bob Iger, freshly reinstalled as CEO, had walked straight into a corporate minefield. Marvel, once Disney's unbeatable cash machine, was now turning out flop after flop. Big-budget blockbusters were bombing at the box office. Fans were complaining about bland, copy-paste storylines, and critics were dragging every release to hell and back.
Did you watch the whole thing or just the parts that I sent you?
I watched it. Obviously, just the parts that you said. Did I watch a whole episode of The View?
No woman can do that unless you're stupid. But
I have a job.
Here's the thing. How can they call themselves progressives when they keep saying that nothing has progressed? Then it's on them.
Right. I just wish I could have, what I would have watched if I could, would have been Joy Behar watching that.
Yes.
And being like, I totally made the right call. It was not an accident that they had him there on her day off.
Yes.
When she was, presented herself as the, expert on systemic racism.
Then came the Daredevil reshoots disaster. A total mess that exposed chaos inside Disney's streaming division. Plot lines were getting tossed, showrunners replaced, and key characters pushed to the side as execs scrambled to fix what everyone knew was about to tank it was damage control on overdrive. And over at Disney Plus, things were getting even uglier. Subscriber numbers weren't just dipping, they were falling off a cliff. International growth flatlined at U.S. users were bailing. And complaints about lazy writing and political preaching were all over the headlines. Fans who used to ride or die for Disney, canceling left and right, like saying the magic was gone. The brand that once felt untouchable was starting to crack, and right when it seemed like it couldn't possibly get worse, boom, this Snow White remake became the poster child for everything that had gone off the rails. A film meant to bring the magic back had become a full-blown joke, and then South Park stepped in and made it 10 times worse. Insiders say it was pure chaos behind the scenes, like red alert level panic emergency meetings were happening daily, with PR teams scrambling to rewrite scripts, spin new talking points, and somehow clean up the mess. There were whispers of last-minute reshoots, entire scenes getting chopped, and even rewrites on the table. But the real problem? Nobody knew who to pin the blame on. Was it Rachel for speaking out too much? Gal Gadot?
People have to wonder, where does Sunny Hostin get her opinions?
Yeah.
Like you said, and it's obviously from her husband. She has to tell her what to say on The View, because without it, she's got nothing up there. She's not very bright. But the problem with her is that she went full racist. She injected skin color into a fairly generic behavior seen in all spouses, regardless of skin color. People marry, they listen to each other, they have something in common with them, they share their political views. She just didn't want to upset her husband by saying her husband makes her do everything, and then she'd have to accuse him of being a racist. Because if he told her that this is what white women do, then he's a racist. You see?
Who insiders say clashed with her on set. The fans who weren't buying the reimagined version of their childhood favorite, or was it South Park for clowning the whole thing so perfectly it couldn't be ignored? Whatever the cause, things were spiraling fast. Rachel reportedly felt betrayed. Sources close to her say her team started quietly exploring legal options, accusing Disney of breaking key parts of her contract, specifically the ones guaranteeing her proper promo visibility and media support during the rollout of the film. According to insiders, Rachel's camp couldn't believe Disney didn't just leave her hanging when the backlash exploded. They actively cut her out of major press moves she was promised. We're talking top talk shows, red carpet interviews, headline magazine covers. Gone without her input. That decision, reportedly made without warning, lit a fuse backstage. Legal advisors were brought in, flipping through every line of her contract, trying to figure out if Disney had actually violated any of the deal's fine print. And while no lawsuit ever officially hit the court, the fact that it almost did said everything. Was it a power play to scare the studio, or a real move toward legal war? No one could say for sure. But one thing was obvious. The relationship between Rachel and Disney wasn't just strained, it was breaking. Even Gal Gadot, once hyped as the film's last hope, found herself pulled into the storm. Rumors were flying like crazy word on the street. She and Rachel hadn't even spoken in weeks. The tension on set was so thick, you could cut with a knife, and insiders claimed whole scenes had been scrapped because the vibe was just that toxic. Meanwhile, online, the internet had a field day memes were everywhere, dragging every piece of drama and blowing it up for laughs. And with South Park's parody still trending like wildfire, the whole thing started mutating into something bigger than just a movie gone wrong. The conversation shifted fast. It stopped being just about Snow White and turned into a war over culture itself.
More time to talk. And I thought Will Smith wouldn't let a black man finish. If her IQ was half as high as her smugness, she'd be Einstein. And later it got weird after Whoopi Goldberg asked a question and Sonny chimed in again.
Tradition versus progress, representation versus respect. Some folks defended Rachel, saying she was pushing for a fresh kind of storytelling, breaking old fairy tale molds, and challenging outdated tropes, but others weren't having it, accusing her of being smug, disrespecting a classic, and then flipping the victim card when it all blew up. But whether you were Team Rachel or not, there was one thing everyone agreed. On that parody hit a nerve that it didn't matter if you laughed or cringed. You felt it. And now, the question haunting Disney is brutal. Can Snow White 2025 still be saved? Honestly, it's not looking good. The film's already been delayed, res hot, rewritten, and now its stars are beefing with the studio worse. Its public image has been completely hijacked by satire, even if the visuals are flawless. Even if Gal Gadot delivers a killer performance as the evil queen. Even if Rachel brings serious heat too. The screen, can this movie really recover, or is this the project that broke Disney? Because at the end of the day, this ain't just about one actress or one script, it's about what happens when a billion-dollar empire loses control of its story, and the whole world watches it unravel. And this isn't just about one movie or one actress, it's about what happens when modern messaging crashes headfirst into old-school nostalgia, and it's about how quickly things can spiral when a billion-dollar brand gets caught between two generations with completely different views on what a princess should be. Rachel Zegler probably never meant to spark a full-blown culture war, but thanks to South Park's ruthless satire, she's become the face of one. Whether she bounces back from that, only time will tell, because this firestorm, it's far from over. Word on the street, South Park might not be done yet. Insiders say another episode could already be in the works, one that goes even deeper into the Snow White saga. And this time, Bob Iger himself might be getting the cartoon roast treatment. What do you think? Is this all just part of evolving storytelling, the growing pains of a modern fairy tale? Or has Disney finally crossed a line and lost the magic that made its classics untouchable? Sound off in the comments. We want to hear everything. And if you live for the chaos, the controversy, the wild behind-the-scenes drama, celebrity clashes, and brutal pop culture parodies, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell, because trust us, this definitely won't be the last time South Park flips Hollywood upside down. See you in the next one.